Kuuluuko? Kuuluu. Hyvää huomenta kaikille. Kuuluuko Jonna sinne? Kuuluu, hyvä. Tuolta oven ulkopuolelta hei saa noita kuulokkeita ja jos ei ole ihan varma, että ymmärtää hyvin teknistä englantia, niin melkein kannattaa ottaa, koska varmaan tulee semmoisia termejä, että kääntäjätkin on ihmeissään, mutta luotetaan, että kääntäjät osaa. Tässä ihan kevennyksenä alkuun voi sanoa, että kun Michaelilta pyydettiin, että voiko esityksen lähettää PPT:nä, niin hän sanoi, että ei, että hän on itse koodannut oman ohjelmansa, millä hän esittää. Että se oli joku, Olli muistaa mikä se oli, mä en muista enää, joku Pantera tai joku koodi, millä se on tehty. Mikä se? Pythonilla, joku eläin se oli. Joo. No niin, hyvää huomenta. Kello alkaa olla aika lailla 9. Mun nimi on Sami Ylisaari, mä oon kulttuurijohtajana, toimin täällä. Ja first of all, Michael, welcome. I'm going to say a few words in Finnish and then I'll give floor to you. Meillä on täällä Michael Mondria, joka on Ars Electronican johtaja. Ars Electronica on tämmöinen tiedekeskus, ehkä on paras termi ilmaisemaan sitä tuolla Lintsissä Itävallassa ja on ihan maailman johtava asiantuntija tästä alasta, mitä kertoo. Ja minkä takia teidät on kutsuttu tänne ja kiva, että teitä on näin moni täällä ja ilmeisesti verkon välityksellä on myös paljon ihmisiä kuuntelemassa, on, että osana loopia on suunniteltu hankittavan siihen uudisrakennukseen deep space-olosuhde, joita on käsitykseni mukaan 2 maailmassa tällä hetkellä. Toinen siellä Lintsissä, Itävallassa ja toinen Mexico Cityssä, Meksikossa. Se on todella vaativa, todella monipuolinen, todella hieno olosuhde, ja jotta me ymmärretään kaikki, mitä se tarkoittaa Oululle, mitä se tarkoittaa loopille, niin kuin hyvinkin monesta näkökulmasta, niin nyt ollaan saatu Michael tänne kertomaan meille siitä, ja Michaelhan nähdään huomenna myös TechArtin loppuseminaarissa, hän puhuu siellä myös. Mutta siinä oikeastaan tämä menee nyt näin, että Michael kohta esittelee tässä noin ehkä, katsotaanko 45 minuuttia. Miettikää, jos teille tulee kysymyksiä, sen jälkeen ehkä voi siihen väliinkin huudella, jos tulee, niin hän on nyt täällä meitä varten vastaamaan niihin kysymyksiin ja niihin ajatuksiin, mitä meillä on. Mutta omasta puolestani oikein paljon tervetuloa ja Michael, I give the floor to you, if you're ready. Just a few seconds. Joten annetaan Michaelille, hän tuossa koodaa, katson koko ajan kun hän koodaa samalla, niin täällä ollaan vähän nextillä levelillä selkeästi tässä tekemisessä. Mutta miettikää, jos tulee kysymyksiä tai jos on jotain kysyttävää. Ja todella toista ne, ketkä tuli jälkeenpäin, että jos on yhtään epäilyksiä siitä teknisestä englannista, vaikka hyvä englanti on, niin kannattaa ottaa ne kuulokkeet, että voi tulla termistöä, joka voi olla ei niin tuttua. Mutta kiva, kun olette paikalla ja I give the floor to you, Michael.
Yeah, thank you a lot. You can swap. It's just starting. So I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation, Olli, and the possibility to show you something about Ars Electronica. And wait a second. My name is Michael Mondria. I'm responsible for Ars Electronica Solutions. I'm the managing director of it, and so what I want to show you is somehow an overview about, of course, deep space. This is the main task today, and to give you the backgrounds as well, how it came to develop this kind of strategy that I will show you in a couple of seconds. But as well give you the cultural background, the background of Ars Electronica in a way, that you can understand that this was going to happen, so to say, not per accident, but as well this was a kind of outcome of a strategy that was developed over the years. So I have just to look what's going on with my computer. Always this kind of technology. So there's something it doesn't like. Maybe it's the internet. I have to close this connection again. It's maybe the internet. Huh? Yeah. So now you can switch. It was the internet. Yeah. So maybe you switch again. Can you switch? So sorry, it was this internet I have connected with. So I will start with, of course, give you some impressions of Ars Electronica and what is Ars Electronica in a way. And before I came then to the technology that we are going for. I mean, to Ars Electronica as an organization, I have to say, we are 100% daughter of the city. So we are a cultural entity, we are a cultural organization. And what we do in terms of our activities, that is connected with these three terms: art, technology, and society. And to give you some historical background as well, we was founded in 1979 by the city as an entity that should go to help the city to transform the city in a way. And on the other hand, the really big or biggest tasks was to educate and to give people orientation about the development of technology. And these are these three terms coming in, so art, technology, society. So we are researching for technology, not just for digital technology, but mainly digital technology. And looking what does this technology do with us humans, so in the center focus point of our mind and thinking is the human, are the societies that are built upon humans, and what is the outcome of the technology to these societies, and what we can do as a human and as a society to, say, use technology in a different way or influence how technology is used for us humans. And that is, so to say, the main topic of our thinking. And the third topic comes into it because we thought it's really important from a special perspective, from a creative, from an art perspective. So we are looking to that topics in a way that differently as a simple scientific research on this topic. And so this is more or less the background of our history. And by the way, this is our center in Linz. And so what we have developed over the more than 4 decades is not this complex, say, organism that we are now at the very first moment. It was a development over years, over decades. And so what you can see here is more or less the most important milestones that we had in the development of Ars Electronica. And I will show you then a small video where I came to the mainly, let's say, columns or areas that builds up the organism of Ars Electronica, but this is more or less an overview. What we do is always, and this is a really a very important background. We try, of course, and I would say this is as well one of the most important USPs that we have as an Ars Electronica organization. It's our network. It's our collaborations with a lot of people, organizations all around the world. And these are scientific organizations, these are business organizations, and of course, these are artists and cultural entities where we work very close together to looking for what comes up for us humans in the future, what are the main trends and directions in terms of the development of technology and how we can use it and transform it to something that is good for us. And so these are the most important areas of Ars Electronica, and I will show you now a video that shows you a little bit the activities around these different areas, and I will tell you how they are connected together and they build this complex organism, Ars Electronica, in a way that has a lot of connections to different areas. And to do that, I start just the video. So first, the most basic area that we were funded with in '79 was the Ars Electronica Festival. The Ars Electronica Festival is nowadays one of the biggest media festivals in the world. There are coming about 100,000, 120,000 visitors to the city of Linz. We have 4 or 5 days where we go out to the city, where we really go to a lot of different locations in the city to a special topic. Each year the topic changes, and we discussing internally each year. So what is the topic that really addresses something that is really important for the next 5-10 years for us humans, for the society. And so this topic was then the topic of the festival, and we are inviting from our network artists and collaboration partners to show with us projects and visions and future thoughts to this topic with a lot of different formats. So we have during a festival normally 1,600 artists and creative people with us in Linz showing their projects. We have a lot of different formats, exhibitions, talks, workshops, lectures, open events, performances, so a lot of different things that are around this topic. For instance, this year the topic was a topic about sustainability. The title was for this year, Welcome to Planet B, because we want to address, we are at least at the Planet B because we have overdone our activities in terms of the Earth. But anyway, so the festival is really a part, it's very visionary, it's very experimentally, so you have a lot of, say, directions that you can look at and visit with a lot of an internationally audience. The second is the Pre-Ars Electronica. The Pre-Ars Electronica is a competition for digital art that we have invented in '87. So 1987 it starts. There are a lot of categories, so classical, digital categories like video, like music, like interactive art in a way. And of course, this competition of digital art, the winner, they get the golden Mikä. It's so-called the Oscar of digital art in a way. We have an international jury for that. And again, this is, of course, to enlarge our network, to be connected with more organizations that are working in these areas of technology development, and that are mainly these developments of where these artists are working, so that we have a year in the competition nearby 6,000-7,000 submissions that coming from all over the world, where we can then look at and see what's coming up in the future in terms of how to use technology. So a very important part of Ars Electronica, this competition, because it's also connected a lot with the festival. In '96 then, the city decided, because the festival and the pre-Ars Electronica are temporarily. So, of course, the festival is always 4 or 5 days in the first weekend of September, and the pre-Ars Electronica is going from January to April. So they want to have us as a permanent location in the city for the citizens. So to really be able to show, educate, give orientation to the normal people. And so the center is coming in, and we founded the center. It's we call it the Museum of the Future, but in this center we have about 7,000 square meters space where we can show our exhibitions, and of course these exhibitions has to be done by someone, and so we found as well in this year, in '96, the Future Lab. The Future Lab is our research entity that works very close together with academic partners. So we have a lot of collaborations with a lot of universities, of course local, but as well internationally. And so the Future Lab was aimed to be the department that could think about new exhibitions, because what we have to show is, of course, things that are not so easy to understand for the normal people. So technology developments that has to be transformed in something that could be understood by normal people. And so you cannot buy these kind of exhibitions. You have to develop these exhibitions by your own. And so this was, so to say, the fourth department of Ars Electronica that is really important. And then there comes, of course, the last department, and this is solutions, that is the bridge to the business world. So that we have then fulfilled really a circle from the visionary, experimentally, artistic, creative way of looking to the future, to the center where we educate people, where we go out to the public, to the Future Lab that gives us this possibility of working together with academic partners, and solutions that comes back with the business needs from the companies, what are outside, and bring out our research to these companies. So this is in a way, it's very slow. The different departments, and what you have seen here in the video material is just some aspects of these different departments. So the outcome of the work of the different areas, of course, is very connected each together. So They are working very closely together because, of course, an impact or a need of a business company has to be transformed into something, into our research, into our, say, in the other areas, and maybe in the educational area, maybe in the future lab area where we research on things. And so it's quite a very organic being together. And in this environment, the technology that we talk now about, deep space, was being developed over the years. So, and again, as we see us as Ars Electronica as well, as a platform for creative people, as a platform for artists, as a platform for creative organizations, this is our main, so to say, direction in terms of thinking. To create something that we can do together. To create something that we can use as in a collaborative way, in a way that we together can exchange not just the thoughts, but as well the different, say, cultural backgrounds and cultural directions internationally and globally. And so this is, the summary of these different entities. To our main topic this day, and this is the deep space. And the deep space, I will start with an overview. The deep space is, of course, a technology that we have developed over the years. It's an immersive environment, and before I come in detail to the functionality and the potential of the use of a deep space, I will say something about the development of deep space, why we have this done, and so that you can understand, so to say, the background. And to come to the genesis of deep space, you have to know that in the beginning, as we opened up the center in '96, we have a collaboration with a tech company in US and Canada. So we was able to show to the public in '96 a cave system. And the cave system in this year, '96, we were the first public entity that could give access to this kind of technology to the normal people, to show them what this is. And just to explain it in a few words, the cave is a 3 by 3 meter room with 4 projections, 3D environment and interactive. And it was developed, of course, for military reasons primarily, and to have an environment where you can simulate things. It was in this time quite expensive in terms of the computers and in terms of the software that you have to use to run such a space. But of course, what you can imagine, that in such a space you can do a lot of things, not just for business reasons, but as well for city development. So we have done a lot of different projects inside the cave. A project, it was a city development project in the south of Linz, where we simulate the whole area that are built up with all the details of the buildings and all the details of the trees and the things around, so that people can really understand what's coming there, and we can change this process of development for certain reasons. And this cave system, here you see some images. This was really amazing for the people because we can use it as well as an environment to create a platform for the artists, for the creative people, to show their applications inside this kind of system. So we developed a software that was able to run a cave system, not just to have, not to be dependent on this quite expensive software that was needed to run a normal cave, but as well to give other cultural entities the possibility to have such kind of environment to run, to have applications that gives, in this year, you remember it was 96, so a possibility to have a 3D environment where you can work with. Yeah? And of course, this technology that we have developed leads as well to something that we use as well a lot in different other projects as well in this time. Because, you know, it was, the software was able to run different formats and not just 3D. So we use it to create huge, say, cultural events, like what you see here. It was an event in 2004 in our opera house, where we have Wagner, Rheingold, visualized in real time with to use, say, the musician's outcome and the conductor's outcome, to transform it in real time to something visually that people that are visiting this concert have all 3D glasses, and we use this kind of software to have a huge, say, 3D wall. It was more than 600 square meters in size, to show and give an addition to the audio experience to the audience. So it was used in different ways. And as we then get the chance to have a deep space or to have an enhancement in our museum so that we can enlarge our space, so we decide we create a, say, cave version 2.0 in a way. We called it deep space. And the deep space was differently for, so to say, the reasons why we built this deep space environment, because of our experience with the cave system and our experience how to use this and how to give access to the public. And this was mainly, so the limitations of the cave system was just to have just 3D. Yeah? This was just a limitation, yeah? Because in 2009, as we opened up our new center, a lot of different technologies has been in development. So 3D laser pointing, like clouds, for instance, was such a development, or gigapixel imagery, or, you know, different areas where new technologies come up that helps to understand our environment. And sorry. And so we thought a lot about how to deal with these different formats in a new kind of cave system. As well, another limitation of the cave system, and I go back to this image where you see the cave. So it was more or less this kind of space, is the space. Just 3 by 3 meters. That means, 5 to 8 people that can go inside space. And as well, the limitations in terms of the interactivity. So you have one person that can interact with the environment inside the cave system. So a lot of things that what we, in our experience in using such a system, and as well in thinking about the new technologies that are coming in and which we will support in a way to make topics understandable for people, we have to change this in a way that leads to an environment that is more or less here, sorry for the German words, but give you an overview to a space like this. And this was a space, 16 to 9 meter wall, 16 to 9 meter floor, and this means a space where 150 people can go in, so it's much more than 5 to 8. You have an immersive environment because of the size and dimension of the screen areas that you have. And we create the software in a totally different way. So what we did, we made out of the software a platform that can be used for a lot of different formats as well. So we can support a lot of different, say, content that is available for the different topics we want to show to the visitors. So this was, and we have inside this space developed then kind of interaction system that is going into two directions. The one is for guided tours through this space. So the one is the interaction that the guide has in terms of controlling the applications and that is running at the moment. So we wanted to have a system that is able to react on the audience. So if you have kids, if you have elderly people, if you have mixed people, if you have people from other cultures, you have to be able to react on that. Yeah? As a guide, not to have a passive space that you run and anyway, who is looking at it runs. Yeah? And so you have no possibility of transforming it a little bit to something that is for this kind of audience needed. Yeah? So this was one big issue, to give this control to the guide that leads through the applications in this environment. And the other was to give the audience the possibility to interact with the applications. So together, in a collaborative way. So this was, so to say, this difference as well, that in my experience now with Deep Space, that is the special experience that people have in Deep Space, because they do it together, they feel it together, they experience it together, they decide together. So it's a totally different way of experience, like going into a cinema, looking at a video. Of course, you are sitting together, but it's a totally different way of how to experience together. And so, this is more or less, so to say, the facts now. You see the space. It's technology-wise something that is very special is as well the resolution. So we have an 8K space. It's in this size very unique that you have an 8K space that needs a special kind of development. This is more technical details. Of course, you need special hardware as well, but the very special thing is about to support 8K in all the different parts that figures out the whole system. So it's very special, 8K in that way. And now I will go to show you some special things about the Deep Space 8K. Just to give you an overview about how we use this space, is of course, I call it always, it's a space with a soul. You know, it lives. Yeah? It's an organic environment that can be used for a lot of different directions. So, of course, we use it in Linz for our educational mission that we have because we are a daughter of the city and we have this mission of educating the young people at most, but as well all the citizens, or give them orientation, and we use this for that. Of course, we use it a little bit in Linz as well for performances, because we are a cultural entity and we have some limitations in kind of resources that we have. So we could not use the deep space each evening, for instance, for performances because of organizational issues. But this as well is a direction where the deep space is going for, performances. For entertainment, of course, for promotion. For cultural mission, this is as well something we have as our mission to show the citizens the different strategies all over the world, because the new digital technologies make it possible to show cultural heritage sites, to show different cultures in a different way in the deep space. And so I go more or less to the topics that we address as well in the deep space. This is just a selection of topics, because it's just, I show you now the topics that are available in Linz, not in other deep spaces. So it's also a matter of, say, the decision that you have to do as an organization, which kind of topics are shown. For instance, we will build a deep space in the National Museum in Zagreb. It's a smaller deep space, but this will go just for space, just space. This is the topic. So it depends totally in which direction the deep space is used in a way. We, of course, have these 8 topics that we address in our deep space, and it's as well, you have to see in the deep space in Linz as not just as an own entity for its own, to show topics that stands alone, so to say, like some cultural heritage topic or things like that, but as well as an end point or a starting point for our exhibitions and workshops that are done in our center. Yeah? So for instance, we have an exhibition, we called it Global Shift. It's about the global change in the world. And of course, if you do a workshop with kids, with schools, with students in this area, then you are working in this exhibition area. But then maybe you start or you end this workshop in deep space to go really in depth into something that you couldn't achieve as a part of the exhibition. Because here, if you travel through the universe, it's really like, yeah. Or here, if you look with the fantastic images of ESA to the Earth, it's totally different. Yeah? So you cannot show this in an exhibition. Yeah? So this as well, that is a use in Linz, that we use it as well a technology or an interface for the different formats that we have in our museum. So workshops, guided tours, things like that. So and I show you as well some images that are, you see here the construction site as we built it. So it was quite challenging in this time because the projector technology was not so far, so in 2009. But anyway, we have achieved to run the deep space, and I show you now just a few images that I'm fascinated on. So here you see some images. I will maybe give you beforehand an overview about which kind of formats are available in deep space. And to show this, it's a little bit tricky. I don't know what the computer is. But to start with that, so I told you that we decided to have to create deep space as a platform. So, and of course, one format is 3D. That's of course the main format, as you will think that create 3D applications or create the possibility of looking to content in a 3D way, and we use a stereoscopic projection so that we have classes where you have the best quality in terms of experiencing 3D from any kind of space where you are inside the deep space. So 3D is of course one of our main formats that we address in the deep space, because it's differently to VR. It's differently to what you see with these new developments of having classes, because of this collaboration, because of this collaborative experience that you have together, because you are not in your world, you are together in a world. And so this makes the difference of the experience of an application in a VR or in a deep space. But of course, we have a lot of other formats, like here. It's a very interesting format from my point of view. It's, you will know it, gigapixel images. This is a technology where you have hundreds, thousands of images stick together to one image. You get a really totally depth in terms of resolution. And so we have images like, I think nowadays the biggest gigapixel image is about 20K in resolution, so it's really pretty high what you have in terms of possibilities in looking at this image and how you use this image. And I will tell you, I mean, I'm totally fascinated about what you can do with just one image. And so we use it, of course, for a cultural point of view. So we have gigapixel images and collaborations with a lot of museums. So we show artworks and invite experts in explaining artworks. So for instance, in 2009, as we opened, we have the first gigapixel image that we showed was The Last Supper from Leonardo da Vinci. And it was fascinating, you know, to know in the original size of the image or the painting, if you be there in Italy, and what you see as a visitor of this painting, and then bring this to a space like deep space, and you can enlarge the painting. You can zoom in into the painting that an area that is in the original painting 1 centimeter to 1 centimeter, it's behind Jesus' head, and you can enlarge this to 6 meters in size. And then you can see that there is a city painted inside this area. You never will see this in the original painting, because you have not, you could not go so the distance is too far and it's too bad, the light and so on and so forth. So you can do amazing things. So what we did for all these kind of formats, you have to imagine that Deep Space in general is a platform that runs different layers. So one is the 3D application, one is the gigapixel image. So you can just use any kind of gigapixel image. So as well, this image, what you see now, is Mont Blanc. It was long years the biggest gigapixel image that are available or was available. And just with this Mont Blanc image, you know, you can play with the kids 1 hour, 2 hours, yeah, to find spots, to explore the image, to do it together interactively and in a collaborative way. So it's really like a lot of potential inside these gigapixels. What you can as well do to help the guides that are running these applications, and the guides running these applications using just a mobile for that. So we have developed a control software that gives the guides the possibility to control this with their mobile, the application. And for the gigapixel image, you can define hotspots in the image to help the guides to not just to find hotspots, but as well to give additional information about these hotspots that you can then show to the visitors. So the guide can interactively explore with the audience this image, but it could also use the phone and just say, okay, use this hotspot to go there, and then automatically it zooms in, goes to this point, and then shows up the additional information. So a super cool format from my point of view, and I mean, as well, this shows how fast development is in technology. In 2009, it was really quite difficult to develop or to create a gigapixel image. Nowadays, it's really easy. It's, the cameras nowadays, they're such as developed that you can really, for a few €100, you get a gigapixel image of a really high resolution, and you can use it. So for instance, we use, of course, we have done gigapixel images from the city, so the audience can as well explore the city from different perspectives and zoom in and explore the city in a different way. So quite an interesting technology. Then quite another interesting technology, point clouds. The 3D point clouds as well, the same story like the gigapixel images. I mean, in 2009, it was quite difficult to create a 3D point cloud because it's the technology, you know, you use lasers for measuring the environment, and you stick it together and you create, say, a cloud, a 3D point cloud of this environment, if it's the room or it's outside or it's, then you have to create a software to go inside, to look at this 3D point cloud. So we have created in Deep Space a player that is as well like the gigapixel player. You put in the 3D point cloud, you can create info points like in the gigapixel image, and then the guide can then, of course, interactively control this environment and go with you, with the audience, through, in this case, these are the Cheops pyramids. This was a collaboration with BBC, where we can really explore the Cheops pyramid 3D with the glasses together with the audience. But as well, you can use the info point and say, go to this special place inside this 3D point cloud. And this, as well, as I said, the same story like the gigapixel. Nowadays, it's really easy to create a 3D point cloud. Yeah, so you can buy, I think it's about 2,000 euro. That's a bag where you can then go through an location, and you need to go slowly through the location, so 1, 2, 3 hours, and then you get out a 3D point cloud of this location immediately. So it's quite easy to use, and of course it's interesting for us to look at sites that are not easy to go for. Yeah? And so we work again here in collaboration with a lot of organizations that it's not just BBC. BBC did quite awesome documentations with this kind of technology. So as well for the ancient Rome, and but there are a lot of organizations out that are really working for this archiving cultural heritage in a way, and they are fantastic digital material available. You can travel in any place in the earth with this kind of technology and show and inform and educate people for this site and for the background of this site. So it's from my point of view a very, very interesting technology that is used here. So then you have 3D models and 360 degrees as well. This is an own format that is covered by an own player in deep space. So what you can do with that is, for instance, we had a collaboration with the Fraunhofer Institute. They built a quite awesome new technology. This is a robotic arm, and a robotic arm that is controlled by via an AI, and in front of the arm is sitting a camera, a high sophisticated camera, and you can put in here some object, any size, and this robotic arm then, controlled by this AI, makes a 3D scan from this object. And the fantastic thing about that is that the AI, of course, decided which kind of pixel is he has to get again to create a highly resolution image of or 3D scan of this object. So you get image scans from objects that are really like 12K, 16K in terms of resolution. And this is really fantastic because this, with this, you can really as well scan objects that are quite difficult to scan, like special materials. So we use it as we built the Samurai Museum in Berlin to scan the objects, the old objects of the samurai culture. So the swords, very special material to make a scan, a 3D scan out of it. Or the armors, or the helmets, and to show in a totally different way how the structure of the material is. Because as you see here, you can really go deep inside this object and really create a totally new perspective and give a totally new view to visitors to the objects that you show. So a very interesting format, because you can use it, of course. 3D scans are available now more and more, not just with this highly sophisticated technology of Fraunhofer. So you can, you have a lot of 3D scans of objects and architectural models that you have in 3D, which you can use then with this player to show and give the audience the possibility to go through this architecture or to look to an object in a totally different way. So it's, again, quite interesting. Of course, we have videos and images. This is as simple as it is, as good as it is. Yeah? So you can use any kind of 2D video or image to show it in an own application in deep space. This is interesting in a lot of directions because, of course, having a cool video in 2D that, and we have made tests with KTV from Japan. If you have a 12K video, it's really giving you something 3D, kind of 3D, because it's so high in resolution that you had the feeling as having this immersive environment, or you are in this immersive environment, then that it's kind of 3D. Also, it's 2D. So it's, but you can use it, of course, we use it, for instance, for this topic looking to more or less entertainment topic. So we have a collaboration with the Red Bull Media Corporation, and they create fantastic images in the world of sports. Yeah? So it's really highly resolution videos that gives you fantastic and totally different view on very special kind of sports. And in this environment, of course, it's very fantastic to look at it as a visitor, but as well images. Yeah? So just an image that you have in such an environment, you can really have with the audience a lot of discussions about just one image. So you can as well react in a very accurate way on things that happens in the world. So for instance, as in America, the new President Obama was in this opening ceremony. So we have a satellite image that shows as well exactly in this time this space and how many people are there. And so we use this satellite image just as an image to have, so to say, a discussion about what is are the consequences of this. And so as well, I would not say that videos and images are very important. Still, although you have such a lot of other sophisticated technologies like 3D scans and gigapixel images and 3D and these kind of things, but they are still very important, and you can do a lot in such an environment with these old traditional formats that are available, of course, in a lot of different things. So thing about this is time-lapse videos. Of course, this is just a different way how to show videos. And you can create interactive applications. Because as I told you, it's not just the possibility of controlling the applications for the guide with a mobile. It's as well this interactivity from the audience. And so we use two systems. The one is a laser system where we can detect where visitors are. So the visitors, as you can see now in this image as well, they are detected as the position are detected from the persons. And with that information alone, you can create a lot of very nice interactive application where you use this, to have this collaborative decision where to go in an application or where to decide which kind of way the application should take then. So, of course, a very interesting possibility as well, quite often used for not just for applications inside deep space that are going for educating or entertaining people, but as well used for this possibility of creating a very special event location, that is used by dancers, by musicians, by a lot of different, kind of people that use then this environment not to have just a visually background that is reacting on me as a performer in a way that we use it as well for the visitors, so he can be tracked, and so he can use this tracking mechanism to create a very special combination of what he's doing, if he's playing a music instrument, or he's doing a dance, or he's doing whatever, and the visual experience that he created. Yeah? And for that, we have a second layer of detection as well that is not used normally for the visitors. It's camera tracking that you can then use for a more detailed, say, way of detecting. So you can as well then use to track the gestures and the body of the people, and then you can create a lot of different ways for the audience. So these are more or less the gives you a lot of possibilities, and in addition, of course, you can create custom applications. So what we have seen still now is just the base functionality of deep space. So you have 3D, you have 2D, you have the gigapixel images, you have 3D scans, you have the 360 degrees environment, and of course, in addition, you can easily create custom applications. Why easily? Because we create a platform. And this platform is based on Unity. Unity is a technology that is quite developed all over the world. It's quite well known. It's the base, more or less. And another engine as well can be used. It's the Unreal Engine. It's as well quite well known. So these are more or less the two most important engines that are used at the moment all over the world. So it's quite easy. For instance, just to make it clear, of course we have a lot of collaborations with universities, I told you. But so to work with a university, we create this interface for thinking about a custom application with the students. So art students have done a lot of applications inside our deep space, just using the interface that is available to develop an application that fulfills, so to say, the needs of whatever the professor in the art university is going for. But as well, at the same time, this interface is used by another university around Linz. It's a gaming, so software gaming, going for educating people for becoming software engineers, especially in the game environment. So they are used as well, this kind of interface, to develop on basis of these applications where they can play with, and of course we give them the space as well to work with that, and for that, of course, and that was the background for the decision as well, to have this possibility to get applications in. So all these formats and possibilities have this background to come easily or more easily to applications that we can show to our visitors. Because as a cultural organization, of course, if we would love to do a lot of applications by ourselves, but for that you need budget and resources and possibilities. So we cannot go to Mexico to make a 3D laser scan of Chichen Itza. Yeah, so as an Ars Electronica entity. So this background, of course, was the main reason as well to create such a mighty platform that gives us this possibility of getting to a lot of applications. Yeah? Just to give you a number, I mean, as we started in 2009, I was happy to have 10 applications in deep space. Nowadays we have 1,600. So it's really like, and this is just the application that we have, because they're available much more. But this shows as well, I mean, so the power of such a platform thinking. And that is, of course, from my experience as well, and I know a lot of immersive environments in the world. So it's this way how to get to content, how to integrate the local, not just artist, the artist group, but as well the business people, as well the universities, to use this environment because it's a unique environment that could be used then in a totally different way for these kind of organizations, but as well the outcome is then, of course, can be used for us to show to the normal people, to the citizens. And that is as well, we use it, for instance, for the festival, we create an own Deep Space Festival inside the festival, where we invite creative people, organizations, artists, to think about deep space applications that they will just do it for this Deep Space Festival, and we have then these kind of applications available if they are good enough and interesting enough for our audience, our normal audience, that we keep it in deep space. So this is about this environment. So, and I'll show you as well some images now of the current deep space. Now this I have shown you. This was not. Very slow. These are just some images to show you some examples how we use it in our space. This is, of course, a black hole. So it's an own application. It's one of our, the visitors love this application. It's called Uniview, and we have done this collaboration with these guys. Now it's the application that is bought by Zeiss, and it's used by a lot of planetarians, but not in this way. In this way, we have it 3D, interactively controlled by our guides, and so you can travel through the whole universe, and as well to look at the black hole. The most interesting thing about that is that it's really like the effects and informations are, of course, scientific proved. Current information that you use in this application, and it's really fantastic because it's really, can be used in a lot of different directions. I mean, of course, for educating people and to give them this possibility of really looking around the world, flying to the ISS, flying to the moon, flying to any planet in our system. But as well to show as well and to connect it to other things like the activity of the sun, for instance. What does it do with our Earth, and what is our magnet field about, and how it's reacting, and why we have this or that, or what we can think about in the future if now the sun becomes more and more active and getting the peak in the next couple of years. So a lot of different things you can do with these kind of applications in deep space. But here another quite nice image. I would say it's really fantastic. This shows as well so the different experience that you will have, because you are in the content together. And this is what it makes very special for the audience to experience this kind of, it's not just a visual experience, it's a really experience. You are in the content. You can, if you use this system properly in terms of the visual and audio and, then you can create a fantastic experience for the visitors that makes him curious, that makes him really raise up questions. And this is, of course, the thing that we as an Ars Electronica want to do, raise up questions, get into discussion, get into thinking how we can solve these questions. So, as well here a fantastic image. I mean, it's just, you can imagine what does it mean, or what does it do, such a visual experience for a normal visitor that have not been in contact with immersive systems or these kind of things in any direction. So a normal citizen that comes in and then being confronted with such an experience, that to become clear that this is my world that I'm touched with. So it's a different way of transforming information. And here as well, this is as well a fantastic example of a collaboration. It's a collaboration that we did with Siemens Healthineers. They created a software that is called cinematic rendering. And cinematic rendering, the name gives you a hint. The guys from Siemens that use CT data from patients to give the doctors more help in analyzing and helping than the people using the outcome of a CT, or but it's just black and white. Yeah, the images are just black and white that you get out of such a CT, and it's very difficult, and you have to be very experienced and have a lot of knowledge to interpret this kind of outcome of the CT. Yeah, but with that in mind, and looking at, and this as well, at Gollum, and all Gollum, this say artificial thing that was created in the Lord of the Rings by just visually created in a fantastic way, that it becomes really like looking really realistic, really like a real human or whatever being. And so combining these two things, he created with Siemens this cinematic rendering software that gets the CT data, interpreting this data with a technology that comes from the cinema, the 3D rendering, and creates this kind of image, which is interactively now. So what you see here, it's just real-time data. Yeah, it's real-time data. So it's a living patient. I will show you some. The background is anyway, it was a TV from the Austrian TV, a report about our use of this cinematic rendering in deep space. This was a scenery about a very well-known show coming from America. You know it, Tommy. But this is our deep space. So, and you see here the cinematic rendering application in live in action. And you see here, this is our main collaboration partner. It's Professor Fellner He's from the main hospital in the city of Linz, which using this kind of application. And you see, you can use this kind of application now interactively. You can work with this data in a totally different way. You can decide to go inside to use this or that perspective, this or that view, and we use this space as well. 2 years, our deep space as an education space for medical students. So they have their lessons, their lectures, always on the day where we have not opened for the public, to have these lectures for the students. Now we build them an own space, a med space. We call it med space. This is more or less an adapted version of our deep space in the university to lecture people. And this is just an example how to, the deep space can be used in terms of, depending on the direction in which the applications are going. I will give you a lot of different, say, point of views. So, and give you this other thing. So you see how it works as well now in the med space in the university. So we have created a software that can be used by the students where to get directly the CT data from the patients directly from the hospital. So work with them, make some points of interest, triggering some interesting things where they think that that is the point of interest for looking at the data, and then transforming it to our application and showing it in this interactive way in the MedSpace environment. This is as big as the deep space, but not with a floor. But you can use as well the space totally differently. So what we have done as well, we built a space for Mikä. It's a big German company, and with, I think, they have 10,000 researchers just inside this area. And what we built there is to use this environment, the deep space that we built, as a space used by the researchers, just by the researchers. And we called it curiosity space, so to create curiosity. So the researchers can play around with the different formats and create applications for this space to go for their, their research field and to look up and play with the outcomes or the possible outcomes of the research inside this space. And I show you as well this image because it's so nice, so that you can see what the outcome could be if it's an interactive scenario used for a performance. So in this case, the visual experience that you see on the wall behind was of course influenced by these two artists. The one and the music, they are composers and painters. And so what they are composing and playing, influencing this visual background, and as well they can influence in terms of really influencing the kind of visual experience that you have on this wall as well in a real-time interactive way. So I think this shows you with some images really different ways how to use. Here you see as well how we use deep space as well in terms of having discussions, talks, using this deep space environment to show an audience as well the press. In this case, it was the statement for the Samurai Museum that we built up. So in which direction it will going, when it will be opened, and so on and so forth. And we use the deep space as well as this background, so to say, for the discussions to show the material that we have in a quite different way as well to the audience. In this case, it was the press. Here another example of this format. And I think I will give you at least one impression. It's maybe here. Maybe here, a short impression about, no, too many. About what deep space can then do with somebody inside the deep space. Together, this was a really very nice performance in deep space. It's a bit slow, the video. Doesn't work. So you cannot see this. But I stop it here because you can imagine that what does it mean for the audience, being inside this, having at the same time this audio and visual experience. It's quite, I think, a very unique way for doing stuff, for going for, and so. I think, in looking at the time as well, to have time for as well discussions and questions, I would stop here. I'm really quite open if you have questions, if you have something where we can discuss. I hope you have an understanding now a little bit what deep space is. It's just more, it's not a technology. Of course, behind it there is technology, a lot of technology. But it's a way of doing. It's a way of interacting with an audience. It's a way of the bandwidth of the potential, how to use the deep space environment in terms of organizational issues or in terms of content issues, or, it's totally open. It's totally flexible and dynamic. And I hope you have now a base of understanding not just the dynamic and flexibility of the content possibilities that you have, but as well, and this is much more important, on the possibilities that you have how to run a deep space, how to run this environment in totally different, say, scenarios, and we are just a small example in Linz, where we use the deep space during the day as an educational environment, and just one day in the evening as an performance and lecture environment for special topics. So it could be opened to much more. So
great, thank you, Michael. Excellent presentation. That was really, really impressive stuff. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So time for questions now. Siellä on chatbox. Sieltä puhukaa mikkiin, niin menee tonne eetteriin sitten, ja kysykää vaan suomeksi myös, jos tuntuu ihan kummalla kielellä valitsette. Niin olkaa hyvä, tuleeko kysymyksiä? Petrillä siitä.
Thank you very much for your presentation, and it's nice to hear news from Ars Electronica. Haven't been there for 10 years, but have performed in your opening in '97. So I have good memories about the festival. Now this thing is very interesting, and I didn't see this in when I was there 10 years ago. What I now wonder in this Oulu environment, we have quite small resources in the field of culture. I think that probably Ars Electronica budget is about the same as we have for all cultural activities, including museums. As you have the new museum at the riverbank, what is Linear Museum or what it is, or all free groups that we support, etc. Museums, orchestras, libraries. I think it's about the same as Ars Electronica in general. So in this case, if we think about this part of Ars Electronica, this environment, deep space, it is interesting, as you said, that you can do very many different things. So to address it to the audience, you have to have like a group of producers and curators, of course, to put it like a program, what to show. Then you need the technical team for sure, which is bigger than in, let's say, just normal little normal traditional museum or show space. And then maybe something between, as you said, that it has been like you have to adapt or tailor-make content into this technical environment. So can you describe how you drive the whole thing, first maybe as resources, then maybe how you curate I now saw that there was like a compilation of your hits, which takes half an hour, maybe including all different kind of stuff, and you repeat it 4 times a day, as I see. How about this? If you have something very interesting content that you would like to show in the same way as a major art exhibition, for example, that you want to market it on daily basis, that there's only same content. So how you structure that? Okay, there were many questions in this. Maybe we start at the resources.
Yeah, okay. Sorry. So to answer these questions, these are, of course, quite interesting. I mean, first of all, how to run deep space. So what we have for the technical background, it was quite a big development over the last, say, 15 years. So we started with in 2009 really with, I think, it was a computer cluster with more than 25 computers. Now we have 2, one for the floor, one for the wall. Of course, there are some small additional computers around. So, but in a way, it has the complexity of the technology in the back is really reduced. And we have as well, in the same time, in parallel, developed, we called it the exhibition control. In general, it's also used for exhibitions as well. But this exhibition control controls, so to say, the whole different, say, ends that or parts of the complex universe of a deep space. Because you have the computers, you have the projectors, you have, the cables, you have 3D, you have different formats. So there's quite a lot of things. But to make one sentence out of it, it's quite easy to maintain a deep space environment, just to run deep space. But then, thank you. What comes then is the way how you use deep space. So if you have, say, 10 hours open time, and you have, so like we do it, so we have half an hour shows or blocks which are used such in that way that half an hour show, then half an hour nothing. And so we have 8 to 10 shows a day. That means two things for the resources that you have to have in the back. On the one hand, you need guides. Of course, we have a team of educated guides that can run these shows. Yeah. So depending on the the number of the shows you run, you need a number of guides that can run these shows. And what we do with that, we always have, a technician not be always during the shows or there on the show, but available for the shows. So because we have inside the museum, we have a lot of issues and things for technicians. So the technician is just being ready for a call if there is some problem in the deep space that he should, but it very seldom happens. Yeah? So this is to run the deep space. Of course, you have to build up a team of guides. We do it in that way that, of course, that are, a mixed team. So students, elderly people that are retired that come and work for us as guides. Totally different, kind of people and types of people, and coming from different directions. But they are then educated for that, and they have, of course, this their documentation about all the application, the main points that you could address, and there, of course, this help that you have with a mobile where you can control the application. But anyway, you need to have this team. We, in the center, we make it in that way that the same team as well then can be used in the exhibition area as well. So it's not just for the deep space, but they are as well then for guided tours through the exhibitions. So because you cannot do all the day presentations, that's really for not good. Yeah? I mean, but you make, so during your 8 hours work, maybe 2 or 3 shows, and the other time you be in the exhibition area and do other things. Yeah? So this is to run the deep space. And then, of course, the biggest and most interesting question about the content. And the content is of course, the budget is a big question. Yeah? But on the one hand, we had this as well. We have a responsible person, say, like a curator, but it's not a curator in that sense. It's a person that organizes, or where all the input is coming in, which is about possible deep space content. Yeah? And so he is more or less organizing and structuring it. I mean, there are mainly 3 directions where content is coming from. The one is, of course, collaborations that you have in your, context. So we have a lot of collaborations with companies, we have a lot of collaborations with universities, with academic partners, and with artists. And so out of these, there comes input. So for instance, they come, okay, can we show or do together a thing in deep space that covers this special topic? And then out of this, they have a content that already mostly, and so it's just about adapting this content in a way that it's feasible for the deep space environment. To make this clear with an example, so I work together with an organization, Conabio. It's a Mexican organization It's an organization that is responsible for the cultural heritage of Mexico, and not just the landscape, but as well the culture itself, the people. And they do a lot of quite amazing documentations about the culture of Mexico, and they did an VR application about the coral reefs about Mexico and the mangrove environment. And they did a VR application, fantastic. Yeah, I mean, it's really like 3 years work, and you have this experience, this 3D environment where you can go into the coral reefs and look at whatever the sharks or whatever where you are interested in, the turtles and so on. And then they came to me and said, hey, could we do a collaboration? Because we have this fantastic VR application, and you have this fantastic, unique environment in deep space, and it's very similar. It's an Unreal VR application. Just can we adapt it to put it into deep space, make, of course, another storytelling around it, because here in the VR you are alone as a person, and in the deep space you are together with others. So we create a storytelling, adapting, so to say, a little bit the application, transforming it to deep space, and then a new application is ready for deep space. So this is one thing how you can create content. The other is, of course, to use existing material. So as well here is the way this person that is responsible for the deep space content in general in the center is looking around for, okay, are there new gigapixel images available? Are there, of course, with these formats that are available in deep space. So, because if you get these kind of formats that are what I've shown you, you have just to import it in deep space and it's ready. Yeah? And so it's not quite a big issue to have a new application that runs, for instance, a 3D point cloud for that, because you just have to import the 3D point cloud. Or to have a new gigapixel application because you have a collaboration with a museum in Helsinki, whatever, yeah? Where you get a gigapixel image out, or you get a gigapixel from the net that shows the new Hubble gigapixel of looking into the universe, to the galaxies. So this is the second one. And the third one is, of course, to actively invite the local partners or the local environment for using this environment to create applications. And not creating application is always looking like, that needs so much budget or effort or whatever. In this case, not, because you have, on the one hand, a lot of different formats available that are easy to use and quite common formats nowadays. And on the other hand, of course, you can create custom applications, but with from my experience now as well with students and the people that are using this interface, quite easily be done. So, for instance, we have a wonderful application in deep space for the kids. So it's quite interactive. You have to catch a fish, and you have it's really quite nice and funny. But this was created by students in one semester. So it's a semester work for this of the students. So 4 months with a group of 15 students that have built up a wonderful application. And so I think these three main things are shaping the environment in a way how to get to create content. And of course there is this, and that is what we do as well with Cubo Negro. Cubo Negro is this deep space that we built in Mexico with a big science center in Sinaloa. And of course it's an exchange because the Cubo Negro, for instance, has a collaboration with the Frida Kahlo Museum in Mexico City. And they create gigapixel images, fantastic, from Frida Kahlo. Of course, we exchange as well content in that way. that we are available then in Linz to show Frida Kahlo images to the audience. So this is more or less, so to say, the technical, the resource in background of running a deep space. But just to say it at the end, of course, depending totally how the deep space is used. So for instance, we could not cover a use of deep space in Linz, which have each evening an event, because we have not the resources. We have just not the resources to open. So again, at 7 in the evening for a lecture or for a performance or whatever. We do it once a week, maybe. More or less all 2 weeks we had the resources to do this, to open up deep space, to have the human resources available to do this. So it depends totally, so to say, if you want to drive deep space in a different way. So for instance, we have, as an example, a collaboration with the Science Center in Singapore, where they run the deep space in a totally different way. So 3 hours with guides, 6 hours without guides. So 3 hours performance. So really a use of deep space totally differently, but of course they have to build up this organizational background to drive this, especially because you need then maybe different people, because in the evening they use it, so to say, more or less as a lecture space, and that is why how you can also quite easy use deep space. You have an environment here where you can come with a laptop, plug it in, and use the wall as a display, which has some templates where you can put in your stuff that is. As well, in this case, then you need more a technician that supports, so to say, the lecturer in plugging in his laptop, and a person that is leading through the evening. And but anyway, it's this. I hope I have answered your questions in a way. Yeah.
Thanks. Can you just elaborate a little bit on the content? Should we start our own or build up our own deep space here? Could we then lease content from, say, you?
Yeah.
Initially, because there would be little original content.
Normally, we start in that way, that we together define, say, a starting package of content. And of course, as I said, we are a platform as well for the artists. So what we do is more or less depending on from which provider the content is coming, there is a license fee on this content. Yeah. So for instance, with BBC, we have created this interactive way how to go through the pyramids, and we showing this content are paying for that no license, because we have done this. But if we do transport it, so to say, to another deep space, the BBC want to have a license fee. So we have to have a contract with BBC that gives us the possibility to give you or any other deep space a content. And so we do it for all the contents. And of course, an artist content is not so expensive like an BBC documentary, but in a way, it's done in that way that we start with this package that is a mix of free and licensed content that you have to create, say, a base, but then at the same time develop a strategy how, especially in this environment, you can create your own content and you use your own content. I mean, the system itself gives you a lot of flexibility because it's quite easy. It's not, you need not a technician to create a new application. Yeah? It's just an import of something, and the other things are done automatically by the system. So it's not like, just to give you the background, a gigapixel image, it's not so easy to show a gigapixel image because it's so big. Yeah? So it's you have to do something with a gigapixel, and for instance, to be able to show it and to give you the possibility to zoom in, you have to tile the image in thousands of pieces. And that is done automatically for you. So it's you just load up the gigapixel image and say play, and then it's automatically distributed, and all the environment is set up so that you can run. So it's quite easy to do that. But to develop a strategy to really create, so to say, as well, a plan how to create content and what is an interesting environment for creating content in that area. So is it the university here, or is it some other organization that could come up with interesting content, Nokia, for instance, or whatever, any other business entity that creates or had maybe some interesting content, or is it a collaboration from the city with another entity that can come up with some interesting stuff, because, for instance, we use it as well for the city. So we invite, the city makes nearby once in a month a lecture about something that happens in the city. So if it comes from the archive of the city, they have found something or whatever, or it's something that should be transported to the public in a different way. So there are different possibilities then, but of course we have to think in each case, depending on then how to use the deep space as well, how to come to create a plan, a strategy for to make the content development sustainable and as well in terms of the budget feasible in a way, because that's as well always our issue as well.
Sure, thanks. Any other questions?
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Maybe 3 questions that you could answer each one. First of all, once you create the licensing content, if we create local content here, are we able to license that to different deep spaces as Oulu content and
Yes.
get revenue out of that?
It's the system itself gives you or had so implemented. We called it the license component, and the license component on the one hand gives the possibility that I can easily remotely give you a content that is licensed, and the system itself is checking if the license is valid and how long the license is, and so on and so forth. On the other hand, it gives you the possibility, if you create an application that you are able, just for instance, load up a gigapixel, then you create a new application. And with all, you can name it, you can, a lot of things in the field of the application, and then you can export it. And if you export it, you can say, okay, this is without license or this is with a license. And so the license system itself guarantees, so to say, that you can easily export your application that can be imported in another deep space easily with or without a license. So it's, of course, possible, and that's planned to do that. So.
Yeah, and the second question is regarding the catalog of different deep space content that you already have created or that is created elsewhere. How can we get access to that catalog from these people that are working for the Museum and Science Center, that they would look into the things that are interesting from their perspective for the Finnish audiences, for Oulu audiences, and also for maybe pedagogical ways that could be interesting for students. So how could we create that catalog of Oulu specific content that will, once we open it?
I mean, on the one hand, you get access to the content that is available on our site, of course. I just put in here. In a digital way, of course, we have a catalog of applications in the different areas and in the different topics that are available, and as well for what are the conditions for this content, because as I said, BBC is different as an artist group or you know, an application that we have developed, for instance. So this we should, and this is normally part, you know, of this feasibility study that we have started already. But the feasibility study is divided more or less in two different parts. The one is the technical part, the architectural part. Does it fit into the architecture? What does it mean in terms of preparation of the architecture? What does it mean in terms of how to use the technology, which kind of technology we can use, and so on and so forth. And the second part is, so to say, to create exactly a catalog for this special location that is a combination of the existing applications and the plan, what I've said before, the content strategy, what could be developed here locally and more or less in a time-based way that could then be used in the way how you want to use the deep space here. Yeah.
Then the last question is maybe about the timeline and the process, how it goes forward. And since we have engineers here, we have architects here, about how can we make it even maybe a 3.0. You have a 2.0 version in Linz, but how can we maybe make it even further in Oulu? So first of all, you told us about the feasibility study. That's of course the next stages. But for example, here in Oulu, we have one of the immersive spaces already created in one of the schools, which are kind of community centers. It's called Talvikangas Community Center. And we are, of course, looking for content that we could have in that immersive space. So to have a deeper understanding of these immersive spaces, how it can be utilized in schools and, of course, in science centers. So is there a possibility to get some of that content to kind of test it out in our existing immersive spaces that, for example, we have in this one community center? And then the second stage is for the feasibility study to kind of look into the architectural plan, because we are now in the process of choosing the architect. And once we have the architect chosen, we of course plan to understand the spatial requirements. We have about 600 square meters of space, which we then want to divide into a space that would be adjustable, so that it's not a fixed deep space, but it would be something that could be utilized as a 600 square meters space. But in the former stages that we have been in the feasibility study, we have heard about the HK resolution imagery, that we need to have a fixed projector system. And we, of course, here in Oulu want to kind of test it out, whether we could do laser projection. Is that in a mature state? Or are there other technical possibilities like LCD screens? So that we would not be kind of tied into the technology that is in Ars Electronica at the moment, but we could be 3.0 here using something even more sophisticated in a sense. But my last question is regarding the space and the kind of budgeting. That once we make the decision here, these decision makers that are here and that are on the Zoom are of course thinking about what should Oulu be prepared for if we want to have it in 2026. So what should be planned for 23, 24, 25, and 26, and onwards?
I mean, that's difficult because, I mean, the technical question is difficult because I cannot really give a serious answer to the developments that will happen in the next 3 years. So, but of course we are. It's not. I mean, at the moment, looking just for budget reasons and not for technical reasons, it's the one and only possibility that you have to create in that size an 8K or more space is projection. And so, of course, you can use other technologies as well, but it's not feasible because it's too expensive. But anyway, I could not. I mean, it's the gap is more or less coming closer. Yeah. So with LED technology and projection technology, that can then be used in terms of creating such a space. So I cannot say really seriously in which direction it will go. We are looking, of course, for that very closely, and of course as well inside the projection technology. I mean, there are some, and we are watching it really very carefully, the development over the last decades. I don't expect that there will be an 8K projector that can be used in that way, that we have to use it to create this immersive and interactive environment. Maybe in 2 years I can tell you something different, but at the moment it looks like this. But anyhow, of course, what you asked for, a time-based strategy, of course, we had to think that, and that is always that what happens with technology, you know. This is not a project which you can do in 2 weeks. So it's really like the decision for the technology has to be done at least 1.5 years before the planned opening. So if so that means in coming back, if you want to open it 2026 with some say time in as test phase, as preparation phase, whatever, it means that of course the technology has to be decided more or less in the mid of 2024, yeah, or maybe in the end of 2024, but in this way around. So what does that mean is that going back, you have, from my point of view, if the decision of the architecture is done, you had immediately to start this phase of feasibility, which is not just, as I said, create a base for the technology in which direction ever it's then going, but as well how this is integrated in the architecture, and on the other hand, in the way how the space is used, yeah, because all the organizational and administrational issues that comes out from this decision or the result of this feasibility is then to be planned the next years to build up, for instance, a team that can run the events in the evening if there are events in the evening, yeah? Or the team that, you know, you have to have time to do that. And as well, I mean, we have done, just to make it clear as an example, in China they use a huge space, it was a theater, yeah? And 4 days a week they use it as a deep space. So, I mean, or all 2 weeks. Yeah? So 2 weeks there was a normal theater, then there was 4 days a deep space, and so totally crazy environment. But of course, yeah, the space was in that way, and so we did this feasibility. The outcome was then, of course, to have a special team that are able to rebuild the space from a theater to a deep space in half a day. Yeah, so. But this has to be done, I think, till mid of 2023. or of course in 2023. So it has to be ready in 2023 that you have time enough to go for the results in 2024. So I think together with this, of course it's possible to use not all, but I think most of it, the applications, not just in the deep space environment, because depending on the format. Yeah? So if there are interactive applications, for instance, for kids, there are Unity applications. Of course, they can run as well in a different environment as well. So we have maybe to adapt it a little bit, but of course they can be used. And other formats can, of course, be used. If there are, you need just a player to run this format. But so, of course, this should be as well a starting point. The outcome of the feasibility is a starting point for getting into the content strategy. Yeah? And the content strategy includes, so to say, the thing, what are the steps? There are environment that can be used for testing as well the local capacity or the local possibilities of creating content maybe as well. More or less this should be the way. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, we're running out of time, but Daria, did you have a question that you wanted to ask? Take the box, please.
Yes, yes. My name is Daria. I'm the director of Northern Photographic Center. And this was sort of like a comment to Olli and Sami that Finland is full of media artists. So I would love to see that there's like an Oulu or like Finnish-based content there as well. I'm a bit wondering about this license, like the conversation that you're having here. Like there's a bunch of artists who are already like working on VR, and that's what you already said, that like VR can be like easily turned into deep space material and that sort of a thing. So please, like in case you don't find any content, the Nordic Photographic Center definitely will. So yeah, that sort of a thing. And how do I get into this, like a planning thing, like for this Oulu, like whoever, like sign me in for the planning of this deep space in Oulu. That's the thing.
Thank you, Daria. That's why you're here. That's so great to hear that comment. Excellent. Absolutely, you will be involved, and so will all stakeholders in Oulu and in Finland as well. And that's why we're doing it. So thank you, Michael, for the excellent presentation. Thank you, Olli, for organizing this, and thank you, Lupi, for hosting the event and all that came. And you will be here until at least Friday, Saturday.
Yeah. Saturday,
so if you want to catch Michael here, I'm sure you can.
Yeah, sure.
But,
you're welcome.
Omasta puolestani kiitos erittäin paljon, että tulitte, ja tästä lähtee Deep Spacein suunnittelu nyt entistä tiukemmin käyntiin. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good. Oh.